Psalm 60. For the leader on Shushan Edut, a michtam of David to be taught when he fought with Aram Naharaim and Aram Tzova, and Yoav returned and defeated Edom, an army of 12,000 men in the Valley of Salt. O God, you have rejected us, you have made a breach in us, you have been angry. Restore us. You have made the land quake, you have torn it open, mend its fissures, for it is collapsing. You have made your people suffer hardship. You have given us wine that makes us reel. Give those who fear you because of your truth a banner for rallying, Selah. That those whom you love might be rescued. Deliver with your right hand and answer me. God promised in his sanctuary that I would exultingly divide up Shechem and measure the valley of Sukkot. Gilad and Menashe would be mine, Ephraim my chief stronghold, Judah my scepter. Moab would be my wash basin. On Edom I would cast my shoe. Acclaim me, O Philistia. Would that I were brought to the bastion. Would that I were led to Edom. But you have rejected us, O God. God, you do not march with our armies. Grant us your aid against the foe, for the help of man is worthless. With God we shall triumph. We will trample our foes. It's a curious psalm, especially when you put it in its context, remembering that the psalmist is imagining himself or herself as sitting in the position of King David, having been victorious in several battles and skirmishes. The accounts are described in the second book of Samuel, chapter 8, which is basically a litany of victories, a picture of David's immense success and power after he assumed the throne of Israel. And so the very lengthy introduction to the psalm, which occupies several phrases, when he fought with Aram Naharaim, and Yoav, his general, returned and defeated Edom, an army of 12,000 men, and so on and so forth. So why does the psalmist have to begin with this lengthy introduction to a relatively brief psalm? But he does it in order to emphasize David's success. And then all of a sudden we have a startling shift. Instead of going right to praising God and thanking God, David instead says something startlingly shocking. He says, "O God, you have rejected us. You have made a breach in us. You have been angry." But what is that all about? It seems like God has been on their side, generating their victories. And so it appears as if David ought to be praising God during this moment. Instead, the psalmist imagines David doing something very different. And the Hebrew contrasted with the English translation is also interesting, because in verse 3, the Hebrew consists of 4 words at the first part of the verse, but the English translation that I read for you has 17 words. The Hebrew is Elohim, God, Zanachtanu, you have rejected us, but that's one word, Zanachtanu. Paratztanu, you have made a breach in us. Anafta, you have been angry. You have rejected us, you have made a breach in us, you have been angry. Altogether in English, 17 words, but in Hebrew, only 4. The psalmist is being very terse in his language. He is being very guarded with his words. He starts off the psalm being verbose, and now he moves into a very clipped kind of style. Rejection, breach, anger. And then, in order to restore some kind of harmony in that verse, he says, Tishovev lanu, two Hebrew words, matching the two English words in the translation, restore us. He begs to be restored, but he wallows in the breach and in the fact that we have been rejected. He approaches God, again, with that kind of terse and abbreviated language, almost out of a sense of shock. It seems like, at least with the Hebrew words, that he's almost at a loss for words. And that's why there are so few words there. And then he says, you have made the land quake. You have torn it open. You've caused earthquakes. The earth has separated and created fissures in the as if it were a kind of a tectonic opening. And the psalmist asks, God, mend its fissures, for it is collapsing. There is a parallelism between the psalmist's comment about the breach within him and within the people, and the breach in the land. Just as the psalmist feels disconnected, that there is a breach between himself and the people and God, or maybe a breach among the people itself. At the same time, that is compared to the way an earthquake causes a breach, a fissure in the earth, in the land. And he asks God to mend it. I think that maybe the psalmist is imagining that David has it all now. He has the throne, he has power, he has immense influence, he has conquered the threatening peoples around him, he has the allegiance of the 12 tribes of Israel. What else could he want? But he still feels incomplete. He cannot feel whole. He still feels that there is a breach, because whatever he has, it cannot be enough. And so too with us. How many times have you felt that with everything that you have and all the blessings that you possess, all the wonderful things that God has showered you with in life, that it's still not enough? And even within ourselves, we often strive for perfection, and as good as we can be, and as righteous as we can be, and as supportive and serving towards others as we can possibly be, it's still not enough, and we demand more of ourselves. Whatever we have, we cannot feel content. We feel that there is a breach within us. We feel that there is a fissure and a disconnect within our spirit that prevents us from feeling truly grounded within ourselves and within our faith. And so we are reminded here, I think, that instead of going to this place of complaint and feeling rejected and the breach when we feel that we have so much and are so blessed, instead, focus on the gratitude and focus on the thanks. Maybe the psalmist, when he says God has rejected, was reflecting on past rejections that the people suffered. Or perhaps he was reflecting on fears of future rejection and future failure. Either way, focusing on what we have in the moment, in the now, separating from regrets of the past and fears of the future, be grateful for what we have. Thank you.